Welcome to the City of Eureka Springs BOZA and Planning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. It's 6 o'clock. We're in the auditorium. Tom, can we do a roll call?
Peter Graham. Susan Hallman.
Here.
Susan Gruning.
Here.
Joshua Dugan. Ann Salee.
Here.
Fergie Stewart.
Here.
And I'm present, Tom Hubert.
All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we don't have anything for Board of Zoning adjustments, so let's go into Planning Commission. Approval of the agenda. I know, Kyle, you had one thing that we're going to add, which is the ex parte discussion or statement.
Thank you. Yes.
You want to read it? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, if I could. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just change that to number 1, and then we'll go, we'll start with that one, and then we'll just kind of go down the list. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add to the agenda?
No.
Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, so motion to approve in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Did you put a public?
I did put out for public comments, unless this gentleman would like to. I don't have anybody that signed up.
Do you have any public comments that you'd like to do? You do? Okay, well, come on up. Just state your name and your address.
Hello, I'm Eric Schoeneman. I live at 247 Dogwood Lane in Eureka Springs. I've been a resident since 97. And I understand that there's a discussion regarding sidewalks. And as far as the solution, you know, there, of course, we're all aware of the problem regarding who should do what. As the suggestion I have for the city is to look at public works, the hiring perhaps of one individual to use a tool that had been used 100 years ago, known as a brush tool. It's like a 3-pound hammer that has a face of it. Instead of smooth, it's like a meat tenderizer. And this is used for dressing down the stone, for stonework. They used it on building the Crescent, all the major block work. This is how you level off surfaces and stack up the blocks. So this is what can be used on the sidewalk surface, hiring one individual, maybe do a workshop with a stonemason to train the necessary 1 or 2 people for public works. And this could be a full-time position where they start at one end and keep going as a service. And so that would be the least expense, and you're hiring a local person, providing a local job. It would be really what money is expended then goes completely back into local help and keeps it local here in fixing our problem with the minimum expense. No added management or anything else really, just add it to public works, and that would be the best solution that I could see. Any questions? If you look it up in a blacksmith manual, it's called a brush tool. B-R-U-S-H. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let's just go right into our meeting. So number 1 is the ex parte statement. Kyle, do you want to read it?
Thank you. Before I read that, I also just want to let you know I put in your packet the most recent version of the Arkansas Freedom of Information Handbook. Applies to all commissions in the state of Arkansas concerning the Freedom of Information Act and how meetings and open records are used in the state. Part of that talks about ex parte communication, which this I'm going to read comes from the Arkansas Administrative Code 126.03.1-1.06, ex parte communication. says, in order to avoid all possibilities of prejudice, real or apparent, to the public interest and persons involved in proceedings pending before the commission. No person shall submit ex parte communication to any commissioner or presiding officer in such proceeding reasonably designed to influence a decision on any issue or law or fact in any such proceeding. Independent advice and counsel rendered by the commissioner's staff to the commission or presiding office is not ex parte communication, nor is attendance by the commissioners or presiding officer at public conferences and other educational events. No commissioner or presiding officer shall request or entertain any ex parte communication herein prohibited. Part B, a commissioner or presiding officer in such proceeding who receives an offer of any ex parte communication concerning any issue of law or fact in any such proceeding shall decline to listen to such communication and shall explain that the matter is pending for determination. If unsuccessful in preventing such communication, the recipient thereof shall advise the communicator that he or she will not consider the communication, that he or she shall promptly and fully inform the commission and all other parties to the proceeding of the substance of the communication and circumstances thereof. Part C, a party may request an opportunity to rebut on record any facts or contentions contained in any prohibited ex parte communication. The commission or presiding officer shall grant such requests only where fairness so requires. If the commissioner or presiding officer declines to grant such requests, the requesting party may proffer its rebuttal for the record. Where the ex parte communication contains assertions of fact, not a part of the record of which the commission or presiding officer cannot take official notice, the commission or presiding officer, in lieu of receiving rebuttal material, normally will direct the alleged factual assertion in the ex parte communication and any proposed rebuttal to be disregarded in arriving at a decision. And that has been amended and is current as of November 15th, 2023. If you guys have any questions on what might be considered ex parte communication, please let me know. If you feel like you've been involved in ex parte communication, please let me know. And if anybody tries to approach you for any issue that has potential to be decided at this table, please let them know that you cannot participate in that conversation with them. If they do not listen, please let me know as soon as possible. So that's what I have for ex parte communication.
Does anybody have any questions about it? Okay, so approval of minutes from December 12th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 12th, 2023.
Nice second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is meeting dates and times. So I've had several people, I know we've got a list of meeting dates that had been sent to us in Kyle's packet. I actually I'm going to ask it again. I've had several people that have come up and said that when they're doing tree cuts or when they're doing CUP transfers or planning business, they feel like planning should have 2 meetings a month, just because it's a long period in between. So again, I'm just going to ask if anybody is opposed to that, if anybody would like to make a motion. Obviously, we can leave it the way it is. We can always do special meetings if we want to, but in the past, planning has always done 2 meetings per month. I think the original reason why it was cut back to 1 was because it was difficult to get a quorum. And that was how many years ago? 3, 4 years ago, maybe?
At one point, yeah, we just had 45 people again.
Yeah. So we can leave it as is, or we can go back to the 2 meetings per month.
I prefer to leave it as is. We can do special meetings. I think that when you're doing a project, you know well in advance that you're doing a project, and you don't wait till the last minute to get your packet in and then want us to come for a special meeting. We've had several of those. And I just think no. I mean, in some cases, you look at other towns, it might take 6 months to present something to a planning commission and get it back. I say we leave it as it is.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the meetings as on the schedule or change it?
I make a motion that we approve the schedule set forth today by Kyle for the second Tuesdays of every month.
I second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to leave the schedule as is, which will be one meeting per month with the option of doing special meetings if we need to. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so. Okay, next item is the Spring Street parking update. I know, Kyle, you were out, but you want to kind of give us a update on all of that?
Yeah, so I met with the mayor when I first got back. There were a couple of issues with enforcement, mainly discussing that with the mayor. It seems it can be resolved through city council at the legislative level. They just need to pull in the city attorney to make some adjustments to make it enforceable by the city. And so they're looking to take that back to city council to make those adjustments.
What were the exact, or what were the specific items?
So I have not talked to Forrest, so I don't know legally specifically what the issue is, but it seemed administrative issue with the same department issuing and enforcing parking permits. And then the other one was there's some question on our current legal non-conforming list and possible updates that need to be made to that list.
So I know when we talked about it before, it was, I think it was before Christmas, I think we talked about it. And it was whether or not the police were doing it as according to the ordinance, and your office was involved too. It seemed like it kind of went the opposite direction than what the ordinance said, right?
I'd have to look at it again. So initially, my office was issuing the first round of parking passes, and then was going to turn over all the files and paperwork to PD to issue moving forward. And it was brought to our attention that the PD cannot issue and enforce the same permit.
Okay, and then as far as the legally non-conforming, is that something that we need to be aware of as far as a planning commission, as far as just revising anything out there that isn't right, or are you just providing them with the list that we currently have?
So they're going to be looking at the list they currently have. They haven't asked me for any information yet, but I will kind of keep following that and see if there's anything we need to do
Okay.
from here.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, Anne, number 4 is discussion of short-term rentals. You had mentioned at the beginning of the year that you wanted to kind of go over some info that you had.
You know, Kyle and I made a good effort to do the, I would just take one pass. We never got to the short-term, to the tourist lodging, but the B&Bs, and it's extremely time-consuming. I think that there's a couple things that we could do that will streamline this purpose. What I'm sending out is a short-term rental inspection checklist that I will say I took this from another city. They charge a 20-year annual fee to do the inspection. I think that will help tremendously. I think if we can get the term unit defined and in code, that will help the code inspector. I think another thing we need to do, if you look on page, I believe it's 422 of your book, it talks about the 180-day rule. And this paragraph belongs to legal nonconforming, which means it's grandfathers. And it talks about a 180-day rule abandoned, discontinued, what it doesn't talk about is CAPC taxes. And I think if we just add in there that failure to pay CAPC taxes within 180 days, however we want to word it, can result in a show cause hearing. And then I think we also need to put it somewhere else in the code book where it not only applies to tourist lodging, grandfather, and CUPs, but it also applies to weekly rentals. Doesn't make any difference if you're a grandfather or CUP. You got to pay your taxes. And there's nowhere in here that allows us to say because you haven't paid your taxes, we're bringing you in for show cause. I think it was very difficult working with the CAPC the last round. I know Kyle sent a lot of requests to know whether or not these taxes had been paid, and we didn't get answers, and then we got some answers too late. There's one that we just transferred that I understand they had not been current on their taxes. I think that's something that we should do, is that before any grandfather or CUP is transferred, an audit is done, and from the time they have owned the property to the time they want to sell it, they need to be current, or there is no transfer. And I think those, between the rental, the inspection, and the CAPC, especially on tourist lodging, unless something comes to us as a complaint, I don't think there's anything else we can monitor. Bed and breakfast, I don't know how long, I can't remember how long we have. We have, what, a year moratorium on B&Bs?
I think it's just June?
It'll
July?
expire in August.
In
Okay.
August, okay. I am absolutely opposed to having managers on site, but I don't know if city council will ever change that. But there is one B&B that continues to not advertise as a B&B, to not advertise that they serve breakfast. And I don't know, is that worth going after, or?
Doesn't that affect their insurance as well? I mean, I remember being in Martha's Vineyard, and we stayed at a B&B, and even they said that they had to serve breakfast, somebody had to live on site. So I don't know, that's just a local thing. I think it's,
Well, I mean, basically, a bed and breakfast, historically, I think, has always been a home-based business. You own the home, you live there, and you run that out of your home. I found that we got a much better reception out of people that live there, the owners live there, than with managers. There's always an excuse with managers. But for right now, I mean, it is a manager or it's the owner-occupier. The other thing that I think we should do is on the application for any transfer of I mean, I know it's iffy. I don't know if we can even do that with legal nonconforming. There's got to be something when it's transferred in the file. There's been some orientation, something that's been done that they have been told the rules.
Right.
But I also think for anything that comes to us on that application process, they need to give more information of what their intent is. If they're going to do a theme, bed and breakfast, or they need to be very upfront with the neighbors. Because what we see is an application that sometimes can have more information what's given to us than what is put in that letter when it goes out to the neighbors, and I think that that's very important. I would want to know exactly what their intent was to do with it.
what's an example of a B&B?
You're going to have to talk closer to your mic. I said your mic, just talk closer to your mic.
Is there an issue? Somebody brought an issue to you about that? Like,
Not a citizen, no. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this.
I think the problem out there is that if there's too wide of a range that somebody can do something with one of these properties, somebody will do something that isn't necessarily thought of highly by a neighbor. And in that case, then what ends up happening is they get upset because they don't like the style of tourist lodging or whatever that is being done there. And, a lot of our codes are old. I mean, we didn't expect for somebody to come in and say, okay, I'm gonna do a kind of a risque kind of property that maybe will offend my neighbors, because there's nothing in the code that says anything about that, so there is the opportunity for
So are
people
they-
to abuse,
Are they
not
doing
abuse
another
it.
business? If it's like risque inside of their B&B, which would, running a business and, are they allowed to be running a business?
Let's just say our codes don't address it right now.
I mean, it's just, if you read a lot of our codes, I mean, they were done a long time ago.
Right.
And there aren't specific things. And I think in this day and age, in 2024, even probably within the last 5 years, everything has to be spelled out so clear that, because if it
Agreed.
goes to court or somebody sues, then it's like, well, that's not what the code says. It says
Right.
And we're just talking residential here,
right.
Right.
so.
Does anybody have any question or
Yeah,
any?
yeah, the only thing because I do hear that, we had a lady here that almost lost her license because she came to us late. And I do hear that a lot on the street, that they don't know the rules, even though they have a license. They fall back on that. So I think that somewhere in the process, there's got to be a thing where they're signing off saying they know the rules. Here's the rules, and they're signing off on a sheet that says, okay, you're signing this off, and you know the requirements in the city of Eureka Springs as far as our ordinance goes, as it complies to B&Bs. But right now, I don't think there is. They're getting a license, and it's kind of, I think the word, a little ambiguous. It's a little bit void of detail. And so we need to, I think, really to help as we get more and more new people in to Eureka, that we get them to sign something or something, so that, because, I'm sure if we didn't approve that lady's renewal, she would have probably gone to court. And so, yeah.
I think we can do that in a couple ways. Like on the grandfathers, it can be given to them at the time of the transfer. On the tourist lodging, the CUPs, there's no reason it can't be given to them the night that we approve it, and we give them the rules and they sign it. There's probably other ways that we could do it.
Didn't we have a checklist a while back we're working on that talked about
Yeah.
the tree cuts and the
Wasn't that
B&Bs,
with,
checking where if you were getting a CUP for tourist lodging or long-term rental?
We talked
Wasn't it
about doing a
checklist we worked
list.
on a while back that
Yeah.
we're going to give out maybe at some point in time?
Because I think Ida was doing the same thing. I think she was trying to come up with a list that she would, so if they see it more than one time, then at least it's, and I think we should probably just coordinate with each other and make sure that, we've got copies of it and it's attached to whatever information we give to them. Ida's going to do the same thing when she gives out their business license. So, I mean, we all need to have the same list, obviously, so that it's just a reinforcement, so if that's something do you all want to put that on a list of things to,
We can work on that. I mean, I think it's an excellent idea, but I think pretty much just doing the inspections, putting in ordinance book about the CAPC taxes, about non-transfers unless an audit has been done, if they haven't paid it in 180 days. I mean, we really don't have that many anymore. I think we've lost 2. We lost 1 tourist lodging on Spring Street. The Pearl Tapman House is no longer a tourist lodging. And then the Sunnyside on Prospect is no longer a bed and breakfast. So we did lose 2 this last
but
year.
did the license, do you know if they've renewed their license? Because we do need to follow up on that then.
Don't know if they renewed. I can check with Ida on that.
Yeah, we'll need to check on that. So, just as a quick thing, did you ever get Jacob's list of his checklist for short-term and long-term?
No.
Okay, so this is what he handed out during his
Okay.
thing. It may meld exactly with yours.
Fine.
So we can, personally, I think it is, kind of going back to the 180-day thing, I think is very important. They need to understand what the rules are. We need to be able to do an audit, or we need to be able to request whether or not they are up to date on paying taxes. So are they a business, aren't they a business?
Well, what we found out when we did the bed and breakfast is that some people hadn't been paying taxes at all. Now, their excuse was,
Right.
I don't know if that's correct or not.
Right.
And the only way we'll know is to send a list of addresses to Mike and ask him to do it and keep on top of it that way. But I think that takes really the burden, a lot of this off of you, a lot of us. I mean, it's on Jacob and then the CAPC.
Yeah, well,
And then
I've got-
any blatant other violations that neighbors or
yeah.
people bring to us.
The other thing that I had, because you talked about breakfast. I know in the past, and when I first got on planning, and gosh, it's been probably 9 years, we were talking about, whether or not we could audit them on they're not advertising that they're doing a breakfast, or they say, we don't do breakfast, but we have granola for you, or whatever we do. The question I really have is, at this point, the only license that is available in residential zone, unless it's a transfer, any new licenses are going to be, as of right now, the B&B license. And it's on moratorium until August. So the question I have is, I kind of went through a bunch of ordinances that were out there. And the theme has consistently been since like 2012, every time there was a moratorium put on bed and breakfast, it was because we were revamping the description, or we were trying to figure out, who was doing what and who wasn't doing what, and with the thought that we were trying to protect our neighborhoods from just becoming this, free-for-all with these buildings. And I started thinking about it a little bit, and I thought, it's a name. It's called a CUP for a bed and breakfast.
Right.
But is that really important? Because I know you've said you don't care if they do a Pop-Tart. We do a full breakfast. You may think a muffin and fruit is fine. So don't think really the important thing is whether or not we even mention breakfast, because we know we have people out there that aren't doing what they're supposed to do anyway. So when you go to audit them, if Kyle will sit there and audit these properties and he goes online and it says, nothing about doing a breakfast, I don't call myself a bed and breakfast, do we call him in for a show cause because of those things? And I know we've done that in the past. But my question really is, what's important to our neighborhoods? Is it that they're doing a breakfast, or that they have somebody living on property? And I would argue at this stage in 2024 that the most important thing is that there is somebody living on property. If we've got new licenses out there, I would like to see planning look at it and say, unless it is a owner resident, manager resident, I'm sorry, but we're not giving out any more licenses for new properties. Because a small cottage that has 2 bedrooms is a building that's taken away from residential. If all they do is buy it, and then they hire Vacasa or whoever is in town to go ahead and manage it. Again, going back, do we categorize or call those places, because the only license we have left is a B&B, when we know a lot of people have skirted around that? Or do we say the only licensed CUP that we're going to offer in residential is a owner resident, manager resident CUP? And it'll take out a lot of the small houses, because they won't have enough room in them to have an owner's quarter. What if it's a 2-bedroom? I mean, they don't have 1 bedroom that they could rent out, that's it. So-
I agree with you. I'm on the point of, I just don't think we need any more at all.
I mean, to go to the extreme, again, I sat and I looked at this and I thought, what is important? And I don't think the name is important at this point. I think it is somebody living there on any new licenses because we want to maintain our neighborhoods. Transfers, I get the transfers. Are they subject to an inspection? Do they have fire extinguishers? Do they have carbon monoxide deals? Have they paid their taxes? I think those are the important things, and so when we come up on the end of this moratorium, I really think that we should, have some more discussions, maybe have a couple workshops and see what the residents think, but are we hung up on the name and trying to make it work with the name? Or do we need to change the name and just say, this is what we require of any new CUPs in a residential neighborhood?
Well, I think the concern for me are some of these bed and breakfasts that call themselves bed and breakfasts that really are tourist lodging,
Exactly.
that have outside entrances, they never see their guests, they don't serve breakfast, and they skirt it around because we no longer do tourist lodging.
Right.
So I'll become a B&B, and then I'll just do tourist lodging.
And that's been happening for years. I mean,
Right.
as long as I've been here, there's always been one or two
Well, and
that have
it's an
skirted it.
enforcement issue.
Well, and I know, that's why I'm saying, is a annual inspection, you have to pay your taxes, you can't transfer a CUP unless you're up to date on everything. And do we just say, we're no longer, the only CUP in residential is going to be called in owner occupied. The only ones that are eligible would be owner occupied.
I'm all for doing some workshops to see what
So-
the residents want or don't want.
Because I just don't think, I think we're getting, I think in years past, we've gotten caught up on, were they serving a breakfast? When in reality, the neighbors and the residents were more concerned over, was there actually somebody who lived there that could monitor that property?
Right.
So with a B&B, I was under the impression somebody always had to be on property. So that hasn't changed. You're still requiring that,
Yes.
whether they serve breakfast or not.
Correct.
So we're just going to enforce the things we're talking about.
And like I said, do we change the name of it? And do we say, there's a lot of different variety of things that you could do. Obviously, we want to transfer those licenses that are currently out there. We don't want to take that away from anybody. Any new CUPs, we should be calling it something. And like I said, does bed and breakfast really apply anyway? And,
What about
if
those
If
that,
I wanted to change to just an owner-occupied property, could I do that? I'm still going to do my breakfast. I'm still going to do my
Well, there's
breakfast.
no more tourist lodging in the residential areas, and we have to take that into account.
And that's why I'm saying, do we call it an owner-occupied
why
lodging?
not make that part of the criteria? To get
Right,
a CUP, it has to be owner occupied.
right.
Whether it's bed and breakfast,
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Do we come up with a different name? Because I think we get tied up or we
Well,
get
what is
caught
the
up on.
criteria? Does the criteria say it has to be owner occupied?
Right now, the bed and breakfast, which is the only CUP that's available anymore.
Right.
Is owner occupied, or you have to have a manager on premises.
So it's already there.
It's already there.
But some of them don't. They're there, the owner's there, but they have it set up that there's separate entrances in and out of their property, so they never see these people.
Well, I have separate entrances too, but I'm.
You offer a breakfast.
But I offer breakfast, but,
Yeah.
but, even like the checklist, which is, and this goes on to another thing, which is, there are properties in Eureka, not just bed and breakfast, not just tourist lodging, but motels and, some of the motels, they don't have staff on property 24 hours a day. I'm on property 24 hours a day.
Well,
you
that
know,
would
everybody-
follow the requirement of the CUP.
Right. I mean,
That's what you have to monitor.
so.
I think we have some workshops and kind of go from
I
there.
think so,
Yeah.
but, you know, like I said, I think we shouldn't get tied up, or we shouldn't get caught up in bed and breakfast as a title. I think we should say what's most important. And I think what I'm hearing and what we've heard for the last few years, is that people want the inspections done, but they also want somebody to live on property.
Right.
Right. But if it's already part of the criteria, then it's the enforcement of. I don't know what the workshop will gain, because everything that everybody's saying,
And I agree
it's
with
the
you.
criteria.
You just
It's
call it
just-
an
it's not
owner-occupied
being-
short-term rental?
It's just not being enforced,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I think that really, has been a great thing this year, and I would have never known that the CAPC wasn't doing their due diligence, ensuring that everybody pays their taxes. They weren't. They flat out weren't. And,
Well,
and we found that with our asking and giving them the records, and says, and so now, part of the CAPC is actually reporting on that during their meetings now, on how many do they still have outstanding that haven't paid.
They've always
So that
done
was a goal, I think, and that was a success for our pushing that back on, and I would have never got, because you
They've
think.
always done that, though.
Yeah.
When you sit on the CAPC, we've always gotten a list of people who are delinquent.
Yeah, I just
It just
never got
wasn't
it, it never
announced.
got out, I guess, I didn't hear it actually discussed
But
in the
aren't
open
those
until recently.
people that are on that list, the people that actually filled out that, whatever it is, CAPC tax form?
Form.
So CAPC knew they were supposed to pay taxes? I mean, the
Yeah,
way.
I mean, they know which ones are delinquent. The problem was the communication
Right.
between
Exactly.
the different areas
Yeah,
weren't, it wasn't
Didn't
happening,
exist.
you know, so.
And one of the next levels I would love to see, and I don't know how we get this done, is at the county level and at the register. I mean, it is amazing how many houses I can still see on the tax rolls that say it's single-family dwelling, and it's not. It's a tourist lodging. And so that they're robbing not only the city, but the county and the state on revenue. And so somebody needs to do, I don't know who it is. I mean, if it's this,
So it's probably like the business license that gets sent to the county and says, hey, this is a business
right,
that does this.
yeah, but it's,
I mean, I know I pay
yeah, it's weird.
as a
Would it be the
business.
assessor?
I don't know, maybe what,
Yeah.
the assessor, because it's not, obviously, there's something
You're
wrong
not gonna go ahead
there.
and volunteer that,
No,
You're right, who's going to, hey, I owe more taxes, let me pay more taxes.
Yeah.
but if
yeah.
you're submitting information to get a business license, the city should be able to say, hey, these are the
Right.
addresses that are considered,
Right.
or that have
They-
applied and
right.
received
And
the
they
business
should, as
license.
part of that process, go and look at the tax records of the assessor's office and say, is that property licensed and titled that way? Because I'm always amazed on, how many I keep finding just by my glancing every once in a while, and it's not. It still shows single-family dwelling, and it's not. It's literally a multi-tenant building, like number 2 Washington. If you go today, it's a single-family dwelling, and there 10 people live there.
Yeah. Well-
It's ridiculous.
I think we can clean up a bunch of stuff. And I was only mentioning the bed and breakfast thing because I know we've talked about, are they serving a breakfast? Aren't they serving a breakfast? So, I think those are just things that
We're never going to win it.
maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
We'll never
we
get
could
done.
tighten up a lot of things.
It's okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and then, so you've got the inspection thing to get with Jacob about?
I do, and do you want to take a picture of it real quick, just so you have this one?
Sure. And then I will
I mean, that's what he,
draft language on the taxes and send to you to put in, and then,
are you going to put in there on the 180-day rule that,
Right.
will you make sure that you look and see where
It's either-
it states transferring of CUPs?
yeah, it's going to be put in like 3 or 4
Yeah,
different places.
that's what I was
in
going to
here.
say.
Yeah, I agree that's good, right?
Very consistent.
Keep that.
And then
Yeah.
the checklist, a checklist of what is required when you transfer, what your obligation is as a business.
Not just transferring, but being able to then get the CUP? Because not all CUPs will transfer, right?
CUPs transfer, grandfathers, they can transfer without coming to us, which is,
But they have to pay
they have to bear the taxes,
something
have to
in
be-
180 days.
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe sign the agreement that they totally understand what all they need to do.
Okay, so I have a question about that. So we know that we've got a property that's coming up on closing that is grandfathered. So do we feel like it is the responsibility of the city to or planning to notify them that, hey, you don't have to come before us for this meeting, but these are the requirements if you want to continue that CUP?
I think so.
So I think, is it the Redbud? So I have had a conversation with him on what is expected of him moving forward. He's aware that he has 180 days to keep that going. But part of the conversation too that I've been having with Ida is when they come to renew their yearly license, she's putting together something that they can sign every year that reminds them what their obligations are to having that permit. I don't know if she's officially started issuing that yet, but she's started developing something like that.
So maybe we could get that same thing from her and then just hand it to whoever transfers?
Yeah, I think that would work.
And then the other question is, even though they don't have to come before us, is that something we could change as a procedure to make them come before us so that they at least have gone through that process and they at least have been given the information instead of just floating out there? Or do we care?
I think we care.
No, I think it's important. There's nothing in these files on these grandfathers. There's no application. So we have to come up with something that when they come in to see you, whether it's a grandfather or a CUP, they're given a copy of these rules, or whatever you want to call it, and they sign for it, and that is put in the file that they've been given, so they cannot come back and say, well, I was never given that.
So if we changed the procedure, so if we just said, it doesn't matter whether or not you're transferring a regular CUP or a grandfather, you still have to come here, because then it will be in our meeting minutes. It will be
We've been doing
recorded.
that with Kylie. We couldn't deny, on a grandfather, couldn't deny it unless there was,
Right.
but we did go over, you do realize you have to live there. You do realize if it has parking, you have to use the parking. We did do that, and I do think it helps.
So is that anywhere in our book that says anything about, so maybe we should add that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would appreciate it. I just know when we did our CUP, it was like all brand new stuff, and I had no clue what they were, we were just like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? You know,
We were the
so,
same way. It's not a gotcha, it's to educate.
right,
Right.
Well, and it doesn't need to be 30 pages of rules.
no.
You know, it can be something, a one-page, very simple,
Right.
like you have a yearly inspection, your taxes.
Yeah.
And you know, there's, the fire department is supposed to do a yearly inspection anyway.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but that's not something we control.
No,
Right.
but it is supposed to happen, and
But
I
if
will,
we're going to have it on that list,
Well, and
maybe they call the fire department to remind them, I don't know.
And maybe it should be on any transfer, that inspection is done prior.
Correct.
That,
Yeah.
but they'd have to
Jacob?
do that for certificate of occupancy, wouldn't they, anyway?
Yep.
See, I'm wondering if all of ours have certificate of occupancies.
I know when we bought ours, Bobby Ray came out, and he went through everything, here's what you need, exits, lights, and, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know if Jacob's doing that, I think he is, some, right?
The way I understand it, yes.
Okay. So maybe,
But
if
all
we
those
get the workshop and we
yeah.
kind of figure out who's.
But all the inspections, CAPC audit, all that should be done prior before they come to planning. Not after we give them the transfer.
Agreed.
I think all that needs to be, because if there's any issues, it gives us an opportunity to give them time to fix it.
So we'll just have to make sure that somehow that information is communicated within.
It's going to have to be on their, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Either
Okay.
application process or,
So if we do a workshop, do you want to look at dates now, or do you want to just know that we're going to try to do it this year?
I mean, we can look at dates now. I don't want to wait till the very end.
No, well, I mean, we're already into March,
Yeah.
so,
I mean, we could do one in March.
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I can schedule it for whenever you guys want to do one.
Well, the meeting's on the 12th, so do you want to schedule it before the meeting, or do you want to schedule it at a different time?
I'm good scheduling it before the meeting,
Do you want a 4 o'clock, or do you want a 5 o'clock?
around 5 o'clock.
Okay, so this is going to be an open workshop on,
Bed and breakfast.
yeah, what are we going to say? On,
Well,
the
we have a
moratorium,
We have a moratorium till August. And we want to get input from our residents on whether or not they think we have enough B&Bs or if they would like to see more B&Bs, I guess. Pretty
I mean, because
simple.
we even talked about, at one time, I think it was last year, weren't we talking about maxing out the number of in
Which we-
residential?
We could say, and that way if, let's say we have 15 and we have one that closes tomorrow and it's not not going to be another B&B, then that's a slot that opens up if someone wants to have it.
Okay, so
Do they
there's,
do a waiting list? I mean, how would you know who to grant that to?
Well, given the parking requirements, there's not a lot of properties.
well, and also if it's owner occupied, do they even have the space to live in
Yeah.
the building?
Absolutely.
Right,
I
you
think
have
that
that,
goes
but what if you do have 2 or 3 that meet the criteria?
Then you have the
You have
200
one slot, how do you choose?
Well, and that goes back to the 250 rule thing, too. You know, are
They
we
all
going to?
meet the criteria, how do
Yeah,
you choose?
you may want to fall back to the liability of the food trucks, with a little lottery.
I thought about that.
So that may be, I mean, if it comes down to that, there's 2 individuals, there's 1 slot, then, here you go, here's a can, take a number, right? And whoever, that is the right number, then they win it. I mean, yeah,
I'm a what-if person.
I understand.
So
No,
it
no,
sounds like
that
maybe
makes
we have
sense.
quite a few thoughts for a workshop.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to,
When are we trying to have it?
it looks like we said at 5 o'clock on the 12th of March.
12th of March, okay.
Okay.
And I will be on vacation with my grandchildren that week, so I will not make that meeting.
Okay, do you want to, does anybody, I don't think we're going to be able to do just one workshop. Does anyone want to go ahead and set a second workshop for April? To continue talking about, I mean, we could do April and May if you wanted to do April, do 3 workshops and say, we've collected enough information.
I'm good with that.
So we'll do 5 o'clock on March 12th, we'll do 5 o'clock on April 9th, and we'll do 5 o'clock on May 14th.
Okay.
And this is a workshop related to,
The bed and breakfast moratorium.
okay. Does that work, Kyle? Okay. Does anybody else have anything else to say about that?
Is there something out there I can read about the moratorium?
It's,
Do we have something?
I can't pull anything up on MuniCode on that. I couldn't find it today. You know, the old site where you could look at everything on the old website? I can't do that on MuniCode. So is there some place that we can look up that information on our own, or do we have to ask now?
I will do some checking on that.
They voted on
So
council.
do you just want a copy of it?
I would like, yeah, I'd like to
Okay.
understand it.
Yeah, I will
Say anything
ask for a
intended.
copy of that and get it sent out to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, which is the tree ordinance. I actually added this on here because, do you remember back in, was it December when we had those 3 special meetings set up for tree
Yeah,
cuts?
then they got, right,
Then it got canceled?
yeah.
Okay, so none of us canceled it. It was canceled by, I guess Jacob canceled it. But when I was reading through, how should I say this? In the tree ordinance on page 6,
Okay.
under number 1, we know that Jacob has the right to cut a tree down if it's dead, right?
Right. Or hazard.
City tree also.
Okay, so under the permit, it said, "The city building inspector may issue a tree removal permit for removal of a dead tree without the approval of the Board of Zoning Adjustment." That's on page 4. But there's also another clause, and my concern is I don't want to get wrapped up in this, because this seems like it could be an out to cut more trees without coming before BOZA. It says, number 1, the conditions set forth in criteria supporting tree removal, A through F, which is that 3rd column on that page, may be waived for any tree that is imminently hazardous to any existing building, sidewalk, driveway, or public street, if, in the opinion of the city building inspector, code enforcement officer, and then it says, comma, the chairman of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, if an emergency exists. Provided further that the city building inspector, code enforcement officer, and the chairman of the Board of Zoning Adjustment must file within 10 days following a waiver under this section, a written statement with the Board of Zoning Adjustment setting forth the reason for the waiver. This notice shall be served in person or by certified return receipt, requested restricted delivery mail to the last known address of the owner. When I read this, what it sounds like is, and again, I didn't get addresses on any of these those special meetings on tree cuts. I don't know if those trees were cut or not,
Yeah.
but we never got a report. But I don't think it should be the responsibility of the building inspector and the chair to decide whether or not there are trees out there that may be hazardous. So I could see where this maybe would come into play if there was a tornado or there was an ice storm where we had hundreds of trees laying around Eureka Springs and a decision had to be made because it was a natural disaster or something like that. But I think that the commission needs to vote on that. I mean, otherwise, you'd have a chair and a building
Well,
inspector that could say, well, we've just deemed it to be hazardous, and then they're required to write a report in 10 days. So it's not clear, and I don't want that to be used just because we didn't have a meeting for a month, or,
So are you implying that the trees shouldn't have been cut down?
I don't know if the trees were cut down. I don't know what happened with
But
those
you
trees.
didn't get a report?
I haven't seen a report.
I thought that,
So I don't know what the addresses
I
were.
thought that there were, no, we didn't get the addresses, but I do believe that, and I think it came from Glenna. The email said that the special meeting had been canceled
Right.
and that the building code enforcement would be doing a waiver within 10 days.
Okay,
So-
but when you read this, doesn't it make it sound like there has to be an agreement between the building code enforcer and the chair?
It's really not clear that the chair, if we want to leave this language kind of like it is, I think we need on the 1, 2, 3, 4th line, add, and the chairman of the building and zoning, that such emergency exists, so right now, it looks like, it's almost like he can
One or
do
the
it,
other?
notify the chair he's done it,
Right.
you know, without even the chair being informed to go out there and look at it.
And I did get a phone call and said, hey, I don't think we need to do this. We're going to cancel the meetings. Well, like, I don't want that to be the presumed, yeah, you're okay with it. Because I didn't know anything about, I didn't even know what the addresses were.
So
And I've never
almost
gotten a
like-
report.
We're not going to have a meeting, but we're going to go ahead and do it, but it wasn't said we're going to go ahead and do it?
Again, I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know.
But we don't
I
want
just
that.
think that this, after I read it, I was like, okay. And I thought, we probably need to really clean this up. Don't you think?
So,
Well, I have a couple thoughts on that. It took us so long to get here.
I know.
I think that before we decide, we need to figure out what happened with the trees and what his justification was. Because, I think that when all this started with this is because it wasn't being enforced. Trees were being allowed to cut down with the former code enforcement. We weren't being notified of it. Some we would, some we wouldn't. I think we need to get a clear understanding from Jacob of maybe these trees didn't come down. I have no idea either.
You know, we've only had one tree cut in 2023 that came to us, I think. I may be wrong.
You
One on-
might be right.
One on Steel Street came to us, and I can't, no, I'm sorry, one on Steel and one on Benton Street, the one behind the property there that's been renovating. So I don't think we got but 2 tree cut applications from him in 2023. And I don't know, a lot of trees were cut, and I presume they were all dead, based on
Right.
so, yeah, it's, I don't know.
so, when you hire a tree cutter,
Well, the tree cutter's gonna say it's dead if
no, but that's not what I
He
was
wants
going
his
to ask. Do
paycheck.
they have to get a permit to cut a tree?
No, it goes, the building inspector issues the permit.
Okay.
I had to get my own permit to cut the trees down in front of my house.
Okay, when you read this, Tom, does it make it sound like it's one or the other has
Well, I
gives
think if
permission?
we wanna leave it, and then I think we at least need to ask, say, and the chairman, and where they both agree that such emergency does exist.
Right.
Not
Okay.
just put it on saying, well, he's saying,
It's
an
either
emergency, I'm
him
gonna cut
or
it down,
this
I'm
one.
gonna report to you that I did that,
Yeah.
But I think, and it's not clear, and this is part of that language out of the old ordinance, I don't know why,
Right.
it never had came up before.
Yeah.
But I can see if somebody said, well, we had a big rain last night, and I've got a tree that's leaning over my house, and you don't have a meeting, for another month, and, this tree could fall any minute, I think, what you're looking at, like a big picture, like a tornado comes through, or.
Right.
a
Ice storm
flash
or
flood
something like
whatever,
that,
and had
yeah.
the, ground washed away, whatever, but.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But
we-
there was some confusion to one of the owners that were a part of this group of 3 that.
Because they came to the city
Right,
council
they came to the
meeting,
city
remember?
council, and that gentleman actually goes to my church, and I basically said you need to get it deemed hazardous by the planning. And so when I saw, what it was weird, issue was the email that we got, that owner never got. So when I saw him on the video going to city council.
Because he thought city
Yeah,
council should be able to
right.
step in.
And so I sent him that note from Jacob saying, hey, they're basically condemned, they can go down, they can come down. And I said, go ahead and cut, here's your permission right there. But I was surprised there was this discongruency, and apparently they never got the email.
So did they cut their trees?
Yeah, he did. That
Oh.
one guy, because, and there was a weird thing with the neighbor, but anyway, the reality was, but the one thing that bothered me was that why didn't that email that Jacob sent us go to all the owners? Or, why
But
was
we
why was this one owner not even knowing that it'd been, basically, he could cut it now? He didn't
But
need
we
to wait
didn't
for
get
our
a-
meeting.
We didn't get a report.
Right, we didn't get a report. So that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there was some weirdness there too. I agree.
Yeah.
We need to find out what was the end result of those 3 cuts and find out, okay, because I was just surprised that one didn't get notified that it was
Remember,
okay to
though,
cut.
I think this was my first meeting, so that would have been November, I think. And a woman came up and said that not only is she seeing trees around her, I think on Hillside,
Oh, I
They're being
think I know
cut
what
down,
you're
but they
talking
were leaving high stumps,
Stump.
like they're not
Yeah.
even cutting them down.
Right.
So there's, trees
Yeah.
are being cut, and
Right, yeah.
I just, and again, maybe I'm reading it completely wrong, but I just feel like there are two options,
Yeah,
the way this is stated, for trees to come down in Eureka Springs. One is it's dead, or one is it's deemed hazardous, but they're,
Yeah.
both of them are taken away from this table, which I thought was the intent of the
right.
ordinance.
Yeah, yeah, because I think that the intent of that was to, for public safety type of thing, you know? I mean, basically, don't wait for a meeting, you know?
Which I
if
can
it's-
understand.
and that- Yeah,
But if there were trees that came down and we didn't get a report, I mean, I just don't think it,
right.
You know.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, there's something, we still don't have that hard
Yeah.
procedure down yet, so obviously, there's a learning curve that we didn't anticipate.
so how do we,
I mean, I still think if it's an emergency that it, which I don't think will happen that much, unless you actually have a major catastrophe or whatever, that, you know, the building inspector could contact the chairman and say, look, you know, we've got an emergency here,
Right.
you know, I like to get, you know, get with you and decide, you know, both of us sign off saying, you know, it can be done.
Right,
But
and
him
that's,
to say, well, I'm gonna cut a tree
yeah.
down because it's an emergency, and I'm gonna send you a report saying I did it.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really accomplish
yeah,
anything. I
yeah.
mean,
Right.
And the other thing is, I think there should be some written thing going back to the public or to the code guy saying, okay, I'm the chair, here's permission to cut down XYZ tree at location so-and-so, boom, you know?
And then a report is done.
Right, and then report back 10
I mean,
days.
'cause you do need, you do need something official.
Right, the paper trail, there's got to
A
be
paper
some,
trail,
there's
right.
got to be some,
And the
and that's what I think we're
technicalities.
lacking right
Right.
now, yeah.
So do y'all think that that paragraph is correct, or do you think like what Tom says, it should have "and" in there?
I think,
Or do
and,
we just say that
yeah,
we're okay with this, and whoever is the chair is responsible for, I mean, what do they say?
It shouldn't be very difficult. I mean, if he says,
There should be a report, right?
Mike says, you know, a tree's about to fall on my house, well, I mean, I don't think I'd be an officer going to say, well, yeah, the tree's fixing on the house. I mean, it's not going to be a complicated decision, but rather than just letting one person make the decision, since it, you know,
Right.
Moses is involved in tree clearance, I think the chairman ought to be in the process too.
And then we need to see a report.
And then do
Absolutely,
a report
right.
of why that happened.
Okay,
Take
so,
a picture, whatever, you know, and attach it to something. I mean,
so maybe he just doesn't know that he's supposed to do a report.
maybe that's what I'm saying, maybe
but I think
education.
we could, you know, it can be clarified that say, and, rather than saying the chairman shall get
Yeah,
a
just
report, make say the chairman
clarification,
shall,
I didn't-
you know, get a
I mean-
report. Should be involved, yeah. And this will take going to the city council.
Because
wanna
that's,
change the
it's
wording.
not written correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of, can we ask Jacob for a report on those, how many ever there were?
Yeah, so I can ask Jacob, follow up on that, see if there's paperwork that still needs to be processed or kind of where that got stalled. It might have been a little bit chaotic with me being gone and then
Right.
the person filling in not knowing what we changed the process to.
And we set up the meetings because it was kind of a, we need to hurry up and do this because it was Christmas and New Year's. But we never got any addresses either. So we don't even know, like, somebody could say, well, this tree was cut down, and we're like, okay, was that one of the ones that were, we don't have any idea, so.
If you're okay to let me see kind of moving forward what the process is happening before we start changing the language of it, and let me get through a full process with Jacob and see.
Okay, so do you want to
What
just add that
looks
to
like.
our agenda for the next meeting?
Sure.
Will that give you enough?
Yeah, I can give you a good date, yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about that? Okay. Okay, wish list. Did anybody do a wish list? Anybody want to talk about anything, or, I know, Ann, you're working on the BMB thing. I think that's an important thing. Susan, do you have, okay, Tom?
I just, I kind of keep up with the city council on the sidewalk issue, just kind of
Okay.
monitor that.
Yeah.
I did have one thing that I wanted to add on that, which was sidewalk related as well. So it was sidewalk and parking. We've got some codes that need to be updated on planning side for sidewalks as well. So PUDs and subdivisions and applications. I don't know if I brought it with me or not, but there's several things on there. As
Well, while you're talking about the code book, I had a meeting with the mayor about a month ago, and we both had our code books, and our code books don't match.
Wow.
So
This
I
is-
think that, Kyle, if you could print out the zoning, whatever, I don't remember the last time was that I've gotten an update.
Yeah, I will get everybody a current version. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so sidewalks, parking, B&B,
Tourist lodging?
tourist, all that kind of in one thing. Anything else anyone wants to add to like
There-
projects for the year?
There was something that we never really heard what was that about, and that was signage, something about the sign, the mayor,
That was the mayor's thing.
yeah, and I never,
He hasn't, I mean,
yeah, it's weird.
we could ask him if he wants to come back again.
Okay.
I think we attempted it 3 or 4 times,
Yeah, that was weird.
so.
Okay.
Okay, 2024 officers.
Okay.
So what do we have? We have chair, vice chair, and what is the other one? Secretary.
Secretary.
Does anybody want to nominate anyone?
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Tom?
I'd like to nominate Susan Harmon as chairman.
I second that.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second for Susan Harmon as chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I can't vote, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do what?
Can I vote? 1, 2, 3, 4.
No,
Doesn't
but you
matter.
don't need to.
It's 4.
Yeah, we got 4 of us.
Okay.
Quorum.
Any opposed? All right, vice chair.
Nominate Fergie.
Second?
All right, so a motion and a second to nominate Ferguson Stewart as vice chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, so 4, and then secretary.
Right.
I nominate Tom Buford for secretary.
Look good on my resume.
Do what?
It'll look good on my resume.
Okay.
Does anyone want to second that?
I second it.
There you
Okay,
go.
so nomination and a second for Tom Buford as secretary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So what is it? 4-1 on all of them?
4.
1 as being an abstain? Or do we have to even say that, since there were 5 of us here? Because I can't vote for myself, he can't vote for
Well,
himself.
I think that's just common sense. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
4, 4, 4.
Yeah, 444. Yeah,
So-
you don't
Or
have to
just
delineate.
shift.
I don't think we have
We
to
just,
delineate.
we just shifted, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, number 9, meeting format.
Yeah.
I think in the past, we've done like a Roberts relaxed rules.
Right, the abridged. yeah.
Kyle sent out
Right.
several things, so does anybody have any thoughts, or do you want to just keep doing, you want to
Yeah,
officially say?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue to use the Robert Rules Abridged Municipal League version of Robert Rules of Order going into 2024.
Okay, I've discussion on that. Does that mean the chair does not vote? Because that's the reason we went to that. Now we've got 2 members that are very iffy here.
Okay. Huh. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, we can put it off to the next meeting if we want to do a little bit of research
Yeah,
on
I'll have to
it.
do some research. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I guess that was I remember that
Yeah,
came up.
that was the reason that we did that, because of the fact that we had low numbers.
Right,
And
So-
we wanted to have more, we wanted the chair to be able to have discussion.
right. So, yeah, the Robert Rules of Order formal thing, that you can't vote.
No.
So, yeah, that's right. I remember.
Okay, so what are we currently using?
We're just using a very relaxed version of Robert's Rules of
Right.
Orders. That allows the chair to have
So
discussion.
could you just make a motion to do it that way, or
Yeah,
would you
I
rather?
make, I make a motion that we continue with the relaxed rules of Robert's orders by use by the planning commission in 2023 till we continue to 2024.
I second that.
Okay.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to continue with the relaxed Robert's Rules of Order that we used in 2023 and carry it over to 2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yay.
Okay, and then the last item is agenda setting. Does anyone want to add? I know we've got,
I'll add
Sidewalk?
I'll bring the language at the next meeting for this.
you mentioned code books.
Yeah, we need new books.
Right. And, yeah,
What was the
And-
other thing? The tree
Tree, right.
clarification,
right.
tree.
And I'd like to hear from Jacob on his going into 2024, what his, if he can come and part of our next agenda meeting, come and tell us what he thinks is his goals for 2024 are. You know, how many more, inspections, things like that. Just see what he's
Yeah, I
up to.
think if some short-term rentals are going to be long-term rentals.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's right, because they had some.
I think some of the motels may be changing over to long-term rentals.
Yeah.
So just a 2024 overview for
Right,
Jacob?
right. Yeah.
And then we've got our workshops for
Right.
the next 3 months at 5 o'clock on the B&B moratorium.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything?
No?
Okay, and Susan, you said you will not be here for the March 12th meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Kyle, do you have that?
And, has anybody talked to Joshua and Peter?
Yeah.
I know Josh is in town, or was this morning.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
It's just weird. I mean, since he's been sworn, I haven't seen him yet.
Peter's missed more than 3 meetings.
Yeah, that's right. Then
he's
he's down.
Mr. Freehead, and he,
Okay, but is that a rule for planning? Is that an official, something that was voted on?
I think it is.
I know it was for the CAPC.
I
But-
think we need clarification on that.
I'll do some looking on that.
Okay,
I thought he bought that house on Singleton.
Peter?
That's what I heard.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that'd be awesome for him.
But he's not here.
I know, but I mean, that still would be
I
awesome
know,
for
it
him.
would be great, but I haven't seen or talked to him.
Okay, so we need to, we just need to establish, so I'm gonna put that on our agenda too. So it's required,
Attendance.
required with what?
Well, I mean, it's, I think the biggest part of it is if you're absent and you've not communicated, I'm sick, I'm out of town.
Well, with us only having one meeting a month, if you miss 3, I mean, that's quite a few, right? So, and when we can determine whether or not we say you can only miss so many, and then you need to, but going back to, can you say, I'm sorry, this isn't working out, or do they have to resign? So there's a legal thing there that happened.
I thought the city council passed something.
Yeah,
that-
code of conduct. I think they passed something that goes
But
under the
I
code of
don't think it's, we're not the ones that would
No,
remove
we're
them.
not. They
I
do.
think it's city council would
Right.
remove them.
Yeah, but I think you also need to look at state code because the
Yeah, I
CAPC had that same issue where they said somebody needed to go and they weren't allowed to do that. So just
No,
just
I
need to be
think we
clear.
definitely need to find out.
Yeah, I will,
Ken and Kim
I'll look
did.
into that.
For sure.
So, okay, if there's nothing else, are we done?
Good comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, do you
Yeah,
want to do
comments.
comments?
Oh, I just welcome Kyle back.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you back.
Thank
Yes.
you.
I think we're all happy to have you back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, the only, like I said, again, boy, we need this guy. And I'm glad he's back. And it makes me feel like we got a full table with him here. But the other thing was Palace Hotel. I had a friend fall because of the sidewalk. I walked that sidewalk, scared the hell out of me. Sorry, my French, and I talked to to the worker there, and I said, look, you guys got to do something about this. This is really dangerous. And anyway, I just wanted to pass it on to everybody. I mean, it's not our responsibility, we've been told, but there are places, that particular place, those are getting really dangerous. And I looked underneath it, it's a 6.5-foot fall from that sidewalk to the ground.
That was one of the ones that I fell on when I first moved here, and I talked to Bobby Ray, and he had to send a letter out to the owner, who I think was out-of-state owner, I'm correct.
Yeah, it's an out-of-state one, I know.
And he saw the manager and said, well, I sent a certified letter to the owner. The manager said, they hadn't told me anything about it.
Yeah,
He said,
yeah.
well, you've been notified, to fix your sidewalk, and that was,
Right. I think even just hazard tape would make me feel better, something.
You can stand
Because it's
in
just
front
so
of
dangerous. Oh, yeah, yeah, and there's it's a 6-inch drop on one whole section that goes down 6 inches straight. And so if it's dark, you're gonna hurt yourself. And that's where this lady fell. And anyway, but I just wanted to mention that in my comments that please, citizens out there, be careful. That's all.
I think the other thing too is, I know everybody doesn't like to talk about sidewalks and who's responsible for and whatever, but ultimately, whether or not it's the homeowner or the city, people can sue for anything. So
Right.
they can come in and sue the city because that's where the money is, right? I mean, there's a bigger pot of money there. So, I would make sure if I were a city that I was 100% sure that I could not get sued, even though my ordinance says it's the property owner. So,
well, last year, there was a lawsuit in the paper where a gentleman was visiting a friend at the old VA in North Little Rock, and he was 71 years old, and he tripped on a 40-inch sidewalk at the VA and got $700-some thousand. And he had to go to, he hurt his shoulder, had to go to rehab and all. And the VA claimed that they walked the grounds every day, to be sure nothing like that would happen. And he sued a federal agency.
It's hard to do.
I mean, which is kind of hard to sue the federal government, get any money, but he did get some. And so, I mean, it's a lot simpler to sue a homeowner than it is the federal government, so.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.
All right. Thanks, Eric.